Someone asked me, why did I get into ham radio? Well, let's talk about it. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, VA3FUC. So, someone asked me, why did I get into ham radio? Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, honestly, with the world the way that it is now, we think about, oh, we can contact anybody around the world through the internet. And the internet is vast and fairly it is vast. But why would someone want to get into amateur radio when we have such an amazing network? Well, there's a lot of things that can happen. I mean, internet relies on a connection. If one of those connections goes down, how much of the worldwide net is affected? Good question. We don't know all the answers to that part, but because we're so now wired together and, you rely on wired technology. I mean, look at a cell phone, for instance. A cell phone is a wired technology, but it's also a radio. I bet you didn't think about that for a second. You went, oh, yeah, I guess it relies on radio because it relies on towers. It's a radio signal. It's under I think it's the 850 megahertz or is it 800 megahertz range? I got to look that up again. But if you think about it, it's still radio. You still need a device to connect to the radio. So kind of like having one of my radios is connecting to the internet. Now, sure, there's many different types of formats to connect to the internet and such, but think about it this way. Before the internet was a thing, you had to get your signal from A to B. Amateur radio was actually out there beforehand. I don't know if you've ever watched like some of the old video archives or how they used to send telegrams. That was all done by Morse code. So the little pal that they would tap on would send out beeps, and then another person at the other end would be listening for those beeps. And once they received those beeps, jot down on a piece of paper in telegram form, and then get that out. And that's how telegrams were sent. They're sent by transmissions, by radio waves. Same thing that we do here in amateur radio. We still listen to those channels. We still use Morse code. There is voice. There's even data that's transmitted through amateur radio. Stuff like FT8, RTTY, even APRS, which is packet radio, which sends packet signals, doing GPS coordinates and such. I'll get into that a little bit later. So, like I said, the APS and that stuff, it's going to be covered in a different video, not in this one. It all started back when I think I was 16 at the time, 17. I worked for the Canadian National Exhibition. It's a fair that happens every year in Ontario, Canada, downtown Toronto, in the Toronto area. And it's kind of like a fair, but it's also agriculture. It's a whole 9 yards. It really is like a country fair in the heart of the city. And with that type of a fair, 1 year, RAC, R-A-C, decided that they wanted to get a table out there and, give us the amateur community a way to get out there and to advertise what we do, being either for radio communications, other types of radio communications, anything like that. That's what they wanted to promote. So clubs were asked to man the table, and each club did for a set day. You had clubs like the Toronto Club, you had North York, you had Etobicoke, you had, I believe Guelph was there too. I'm not 100% sure on that. Like as someone from Guelph area of Canada can verify that for me. Mississauga, Brampton, I want to say, I think it was Ajax, Oshawa. So a whole bunch of them, basically. And it was for 18 days. That's how long the fair runs. And at the time, I was kind of like still into, like, I always had a foundation for radio. I always found it interesting when I could put out I had this little radio. It wasn't that powerful anyways, but, you just pull up the antenna and then you dial through the AM or FM dial. I used to hear stations that would come across the lake. One station in particular, it came from Buffalo. It was one of the I think it was called Magic at the time. Great radio station. Great hosts on there too. But they would every so often you'd hear them across the border. So that kind of got me interested, like how far radio signals can go, because that was kind of interesting. And I started learning a little bit about propagation, DXing, which then I was at the I was at the what building is that one called now? I think it was the home something building. Yeah, I can't remember the name. So if you've ever been in Exhibition Place and you got an idea where the area is, there's a building right there in the center. Maybe I'll pop up a Google map so you guys can see the area. And in that building, they set up the radios. There were approximately, if I remember correctly, 4 antennas they had up there. One was for VHF, UHF. They had another antenna up there, I believe, for 20 and 40. And then they had another antenna up for 80 and 160. So they could hear all the bands that were really popular at the time. And because Morse code, the guys that love using the keys were transmitting and doing their thing. Well, I'm not a Morse code fan. I'm okay at Morse. Decoding it, I was freaking sharp. I could just sit there and listen to it and decode it and write it down. And I remember doing that course and almost getting 80% out of that. So Morse code is something that's interesting. I don't personally like it myself, but it is interesting nonetheless. Phone is where I really do like. And we call phone is basically having a microphone and calling out CQ. That is phone mode. So if you ever hear someone say, oh, do you do phone, data, or do you do key? Key would be Morse code. Phone would be voice. Data is data. Just clear that up. But at the time, the data wasn't a thing. It was a thing, but it wasn't really a thing. If you get my drift. So phone was kind of like something I kind of got into, using my own voice. So I was asking the Toronto Club a little bit of questions about, using amateur radio. And they told me, oh, you know what? The Mississauga Club's going to be here, but hey, why don't you sit down, take a look at these things? And I was just looking at the radios and I was kind of amazed that they could broadcast on like regular channels. And then they explained to me, yeah, these are bands you don't hear on an actual radio. You can hear them on shortwave, but not on a real radio. I was like, oh, so it's just not like AM or FM. They went, well, it's like FM broadcasting, AM broadcasting, but with a different twist. So they explained a little bit more about it. I went, oh, that's really cool because, I always found radio to be interesting. And they said, well, why don't we do contact? I'm like, a contact? Yeah, here, sit down. They made me sit down and right beside another operator, and he's like, let's have some fun. And I met him and he was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's have some fun. So he's like, here's your headphones. I'm like, okay. So I put on the headphones and he's had his headphones on. He's like, okay, we're going to dial around the dial. We're going to see what we can find. And he was just doing this he had this dial in the center. He's just zooming around. He's like, oh, wait, hang on. And the sound was coming from, and what we were hearing was Great Britain. He's like, whoa, let's do a contact. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you hear that CQ, 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 and that long words? Wait, yeah. He's like, that's someone in Great Britain making a call for someone to reach back to him. Let's have some fun. So he got on, so all of a sudden I hear CQ, 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 this is VA, blah, 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 special station, calling out to, I think it was 2 Echo Lima Mike Delta Delta, I think it was. I can't remember the actual call sign. And he's using all these codes. And I'm like going, whoa, okay, this is kind of cool. And he's like, yeah, I got a guy here who's looking to get into amateur rate. They trade a few QSOs, and then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I got a guy here who's getting into amateur radio. They're like, put him on. So I'm like, okay. So he hands me the microphone. He's like, you press the bar, talk into the microphone, make sure your mouth is over the microphone when you're talking. I'm like, okay, fine. Puts his microphone in front of me. I'm like this right now, shaking, but oh well, whatever. So he's like, what you're going to say is Vector Alpha, and I don't remember the rest of it. Vector Alpha 3, I know that much, and it was something like some weird call sign to represent C and E. And you just say that, and you say your name, and when he radios back, we will then converse. I'm like, okay. So I press down the paddle. I say the call sign. I was like, my name is Ron. I am interested. I was at the booth, and they asked me if I wanted to try this out, and I'm here making a contact, I guess. And I let go of that. And he replied back, and he said, like, Dad, don't be so nervous. This is a fun hobby. It's always good to hear young voices getting into this hobby. And he looked, and the operator looked at me and said, go ahead, reply back. And by that time, I got his name and everything else. So I'm like, how do I reply back? Just speak. Press down on the receiver and said a few words. And he's like, replies back, and we have a conversation for about, I'd say about 4 minutes. And I went, and then I pressed down on the bar again. I said, okay, cool. Yeah, this is very cool to be doing this. And I let go of it, and he's like, well, hopefully you can pass your test, and good luck at the test. And he said, well, I guess this ends our QSO, so I'm going to say 73 to you. And I'm like, okay, how do I reply back? He's like, just say 73. That's it. 73 to you too. I let go. And I kind of looked at the instructor, which I called the instructor because he was instructing me how to do this. I looked at him and I went, well, what does 73 mean? He means it's a way of saying goodbye and have yourself a pleasant time. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's basically it. And I was kind of like going, wow, that was kind of cool. So how do I get involved in this? And that's when they found out when the Mississauga Club was coming in. And they said, come in on this date. Here's the information for the Mississauga Club. Go down there and check them out. Like, okay. So I went back there, went and did joined the club for Mississauga, and worked hard to get my license. Unfortunately, I did fail twice. Not by much, though. I only failed by maybe 4. And the second time I went to go right again, I failed by 2. But at the time also I was studying for a couple other things, so I kind of put it on the back burner and kind of forgot about ham radio, to be perfectly honest. I just got busy with work, with school, and finding work and keeping my grades up. So come back 20 years or more later, I finally decided, well, I got more inspired by radio again after finding a couple YouTubers talking about ham radio. And those channels have helped me out a lot. And if you look on the main page, you'll find the channels that I talk that are there. You'll see them. I believe it's on this side of the screen. Yeah. I'm also going to put down some links down below of some of the channels that have really inspired me to go into ham radio. But other than that, that's what kind of resparked the flame. I contacted a couple clubs out here. The one club both clubs replied back, Kitchener and also the Cambridge, both replied back. And when I looked at the classes and where they were located, the only one that looked really well was the one in Cambridge because it wasn't that far away from me. It was easy for me to get to and it was always Wednesday nights. So I was like, sorry, Tuesday nights. So I said, you know what? I'm not doing much on Tuesday nights, nothing on TV. I'll go there. So I joined the club, studied hard, and passed my test. But I didn't pass it with 80. I passed it with 74, I think it was, or something like that. A couple questions off, and a couple questions I double guessed on, and I think those are the ones that affected me the most. The double guessing. I swear, when you write these tests, always go with the first question you get, guys, if you're going to do this. So I went, got my 2 meter, I'm allowed to be on 2 meter, 70 centimeter, 220, and I'm allowed, and UHF, VHF on 6 meters only. Does that give me a lot to play with? Absolutely not. But I got to rewrite the test, get 80%, and I'm on HF. Access to all the bands. And that's the best way to be. Now, I know in the States, you guys have your technician, which is 2 meters, 70 centimeters, the whole night, that yard that I'm in too. Then you have your general, which is restrictive on HF, which I never understood why you guys have so many restrictions. Where in Canada, we're allowed on all channels once we get our 80. In the States, you guys got restrictive rights, but you can be on most of the bands and you have certain privileges. Then you have your extra. Over here, we have advance. But your extra opens up a lot of more of the band, opens up the whole band, and allows you to play in the amateur radio spectrum. Where with us, we can play in that band. We can play in all the bands. We don't have any restriction. Now, saying that, though, there are certain rules that we can't do. But in reality, though, we can be on all bands and we can go around all over the place and listen and broadcast and reply. But we don't have access to. But for me to be able to build radios and such, you have to pass your advance to build those radios. And that's something I may or may not get into. I haven't decided yet if getting that ability to, to operate the bands and to go in to build my own radio rigs. And I might actually get one of my friends that has gotten his advanced to talk about his builds that he's been working on. Because he's built, I think he's building a, was it? I think he said it was 20 meter radio that can do QRP, which is low power. QRP is about 5 to 10 watts. So it'd be interesting to see his radio. I myself hope to get that license, and once I can, I'm going to be doing some more videos. And I think one of the things I'm going to try to do is maybe do a POTA activation for fun and just practice at emergency radio communication. But for that, I just wanted to let you guys know what was going on and to answer that person's question. So hopefully that answers you guys too. Why did I get in the ham radio? The next couple of videos that you are going to see, I'm going to put a little disclaimer on them so you know that at the time that this was recorded, I wasn't a licensed ham. But I do feel that some of that information is still valid to new people that are getting into amateur radio or have discovered this channel and are interested in radio. With that being said, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you want to hit that subscribe button, that'd be great. Ring the bell. Also, don't forget to like and comment down below. I read the comments, I really do, and I always like to hear from you guys. So till next time, have fun, be yourself, and to anyone that's new getting your radio license, I want to say to the ones that have passed, congratulations. You're going to have fun in this hobby. It's a great hobby. To people who are got your generals and your advanced, congratulations to you guys. It's going to be great. You guys are going to have a lot of fun on the higher bands. And to anyone that is studying and feels a little discouraged, don't feel discouraged. Just keep at it. The book, I understand. It's a lot to take in. It's a whole new world that you're diving into. But honestly, to be real with you guys, it's a lot of fun. You have no idea how much fun this hobby actually can get into. I mean, if you know wiring, you know electronics, you're going to have fun in this hobby. This hobby is a big, wide door that you can open up to. Even drone operators are ham radio operators in the general mode because they want to fly their drones. And they need a license because sometimes it's in the 4 and 5 gigahertz range. But with that being said, still, I look forward to everybody and to everyone that is studying or going to be able to write your exam soon. Good luck, and I wish you all the best. 73.